This episode of Out of Spec Reviews is brought to you by Magna. More on that later. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video, and welcome to another EV Pushing It to the Limit challenge. That behind me is the Ford F-150 Lightning, and we are at our offices in northern Colorado with not only the F-150 Lightning, with 5 other electric cars surrounding it, because we are going to be charging all of those cars off of the F-150, which is with its giant 131 kilowatt hour battery pack. So Ford has a Pro Power Onboard system that will allow us to do this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, and then we're going to push it right to its limits and see if it can charge all of these cars at once, and not just like plug it in and see if it works. We're going to let it run all night to see how much energy we can transfer from the F-150 and into all these other EVs. Did the smart car's parking lights just go off? We can't have that. This is the race car smart car. What the heck? Let me just crank those back on for your viewing pleasure. This is our lovely smart car. We love this thing. Let me tell you a little bit about Pro Power Onboard. I'm going to pop the front trunk on this thing, and what you're going to see is something pretty nifty. There are 4 120 volt household outlets in here. They're technically NEMA 520, so you can pull 20 amps from either one of them, and that's pretty sweet. So what we're going to do is we're going to be plugging one car into this bank of 4, because I believe this whole thing is on a 20 amp circuit. I think we kind of have to disperse the power for this. So essentially there's 3 power banks, 3 inverters on this truck. There is one 2.4 kilowatt unit, which only handles 120 volt outlets. You got 4 plugs up here, one in the front cabin and one in the rear cabin. Each one of them, assuming nothing else is plugged in, could do 20 amps. We are going to be plugging one vehicle in the cabin and one vehicle in the Mega Power front. In the rear, section B, if you will, there are 2 different inverters in here, and they're broken into an A and B section. And essentially the way they work is there is a bank of a 3.6 kilowatt inverter and then another bank of a 3.6 kilowatt inverter, and they both output 120 volts. If you combine them, then you can get 240 volts, and that would be into this connection right here, 240 volts, boom. The thing that we have decided to do, because we actually wanted to manage our power a little differently than how the truck wanted us to, is we have a 240 volt connection down to a plug that only operates at 120, and it really just pulls the power from one of the poles and not the other, from one of the pins in there. So it's not dangerous, nothing's crazy. We're just only pulling one side of the equation, and that will allow us to max out one bank of the inverter to charge the Rivian on a faster charger, which will run probably 26 or 28 amps at 120 volts. We'll see what it gets up to. And then we'll plug both the Tesla and the Etron into bank B, and that way we can control each one. It's also just about the adapters that we have available to us tonight, and this is what we're able to do. Nothing's dangerous. It's all just fine. I wouldn't recommend you testing this with your truck. Why? Just so if you break something, don't come after us, but that's why we test it for you, so you don't have to. I think this is going to be an awesome situation. I can't wait to see everything. Let me get the nerdy data. Let me go through how we're going to calculate everything. Then we'll plug everything in and see if the truck can even handle it for a short period of time. And then we're going to let it run all night. This is going to be wild. You join me back at the office with these incredible views to thank Magna. Now, Magna is a technology company that produces not only parts for cars, but also technological solutions from manufacturing and design and engineering. They cover so many parts of the automotive sector, and I bet you've interacted with a Magna product in your life before. Magna actually is very near and dear to my heart, because their partnership, Magna Steyr in Austria, produced my first car, a Mini Countryman, and it was built right there in Graz. A lot of you are also familiar. Magna's going to be producing the Fisker Ocean in their Magna Steyr factory, and they also build G-Wagons, and nothing gets tougher than a G. So really excited about our partnership with Magna, of course. They are also hiring for engineers, so we know a lot of you guys are super interested in technology and automotive. I'll leave a link below so you can learn more about possible opportunities at Magna, but of course we want to thank them for sponsoring today's video and being such a huge supporter of Out of Spec Truly, they are pushing mobility forwards responsibly and sustainably. So let me give you some nerdy data. I don't know if you guys saw, we did an EV range test on this and I showed you this app. The app is called Car Scanner and it's just hooked up to a generic wireless OBD thing. A lot of cars have this and I'm really glad Ford displays all of the data through the OBD port, unlike Tesla, which this doesn't actually even have like a traditional OBD port. You got to like hack into it and get a splitter and then OBD. And I don't think anyone's figured out the Rivian yet, but that'll be a topic for another day. The Lightning has it. So essentially we're at 97.5% state of charge. That's what we would see on the displays and everything. But of course there's buffers in the battery pack. So the battery itself is actually only at 92.48%. Really, this is the number we're going to be looking at. There's 127.65 kilowatt hours left in the battery pack from now. What we're going to do is come back in the morning and see how much the truck has drained out of it throughout the entire night. The one I just have to, for the super nerds out there like me, this is relying on BMS data, which is kind of a guesstimate. It's good enough for this test, but for those who would be doing, you know, actual lab testing, you wouldn't use this number. You'd calculate it a little bit differently, but that's okay. 127.65 kilowatt hours is our starting energy capacity in the high voltage pack on there. Let me walk you through all of the states of charges of all of the vehicles, and then we'll see what they're all at in the morning. This, of course, is our trusty electric smart car, the dog hauler, my real, I don't know, daily driver. I love ripping around this thing, especially now that the weather's nice, top down in an electric car. That's a pretty cool experience, and you can do big skids in it, so I love this. We are gonna be plugging this in at, I believe, 8 amps because we have to balance out that 2.4 kilowatt front unit, and we're gonna balance it out with the Ionic 5. So both the Smart and the Ionic 5 are going to be run on the front unit only. These are the only two cars running on the front unit. The Ionic 5 is Zach's Ionic 5. If you guys don't know Zach, he's a presenter for our Out of Spec Overlanding channel, and he happens to own this awesome Ionic 5. This is Alyssa's Audi e-tron. We have just fallen in love with this car. It's been a wonderful daily driver for her, great dog hauler, been a great vehicle. It's at exactly 50% state of charge, and we're going to be running this at 13 amps actually. This is our Euro charger, so we're going a little bit more than designed, but it's actually not bad because we have it plugged into again a 20 amp plug and circuit, so it's all fine. But we're going to be pulling 13 amps into the e-tron. Then the Tesla will actually be on the same circuit as the e-tron, so we're putting them on bank A, and it won't actually fully max out bank A. I think we'll have a few hundred watts left over. So we're going to go as max as we possibly can, but I don't think we're going to get 9.6 kilowatt power total. We'll probably get 9.2, 9.3 is my guess. We'll have to calculate it. Yeah, I still own the Tesla Model 3. How about that, Jordan? Isn't that crazy? I keep messing up the paperwork. I don't know. At this point, I'm just like, I should keep it. I like it. And so who knows what's going to happen with the trusty Model 3. I don't know. Really, I still own it. I haven't sold it yet. I've been trying to. There's a company online that's been trying to buy it, but then I was away and we couldn't get paperwork shipped and it was just a roundabout thing. Anyway, this has fully variable load control. We can ramp up or down the intake, and I think we're going to be able to set this at 7 amps and the Audi at 13 to max out that 20 amp circuit, at least for the plugs are. And then we have our Rivian R1T, which we are plugging into, again, a just bank B in the rear, and we're going to go all the way to 3.6 kilowatts on this one. And so that should, in theory, be the most we can collectively pull off of this Pro Power Onboard system with everything. By the way, states of charge, this is at 19, and the Tesla is at 30, what was it at, Jordan? Tesla, 38%. Ionic's at 69%, this is at 50, Smart's at 38. So we'll give you a starting and ending percentage at tomorrow, and we'll see how many kilowatt hours we drain out of this thing. But what do you say we start plugging stuff in and seeing how it all works? Yeah. I've navigated to the Pro Power Onboard section here in the screen. I'm going to kick it on. We're going to put down the vehicle power down timer to off. So this is going to say, yep, we'll let the thing run all night to power your stuff. Right now we just have the interior circuit on, which would be this plug right here and the rear. I'm also going to kick the front trunk circuit on as well. But I say we start by plugging in the Ionic 5. And why are we plugging the Ionic 5 into a Tesla wall connector? Well, we just started running out of connectors, so we just used a Tesla one. And I'll show you how that hooks up into the car here. So let's run over there and get it charging. So we got that running out the window. And here we have just the regular Tesla connection, the cable coming out to a J1772 2 Tesla unit. By the way, everyone's always asking me which one of these to buy. They all do the same. But if you're gonna pull more than 40 amps, make sure you buy the 80 amp version. Okay, in we go. So first one in, let's make sure it all charges. The car seems happy. We got the pixels lit up. Charging started. It actually tells you every time when you plug the Ionic 5 in. So let's go over here, Jordan. Why don't you take a peek in, and you can see we're pulling 1,340 watts on that Pro Power system right there already. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to supplement the Ionic 5 with the smart cars system. And I'm using this particular charger, which is a European charger. A really cool one, by the way, but it doesn't apply to our market here. I'm gonna kick the lights on in the front trunk, boom. I love that. There's just lights everywhere on this thing. We took this camping last night and it was wonderful. We could see everything everywhere. Okay, so now I'm going to plug this into here, and quickly I'm gonna get here and back it down, oh, I already did, to 8 amps. That should be good to max out this circuit. So now, this into the Smarty, and there we go, couldn't see. So that's going in, and it is charging. Now the big question is, are we gonna blow the circuit? So Jordan, hop inside, take a look at the screen. What's it looking like in there?
2.24 of the 2.4, so
that's pretty close to maxed out, I would say.
yeah, close enough.
Okay, I think if we were to go from 8 to 10 amps would be the next variable, we would probably go over that. So yeah. I would say that's maxed out as much as possible. Would you agree?
Yep.
Okay, now let's move on to the rear. So I am going to find the keys to the Audi somewhere. They are over here. We are going to click unlock, and now I'm going to turn on the rear unit just with a little button over here, which is nice. You don't actually have to do it from the screen on the inside. There's just a little green button in the back. I'm now going to plug in the Audi, and it should, again, we're doing 13 amps on the Audi. It should just go, and it is about to. I hear things moving, clicking, green, and we're charging. So take a look on the inside now. Let's see what we're up to at this point. So we got how many watts going? 1,520?
Yep.
Okay. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to put the Tesla at the lowest. We're gonna set it to 5 amps and then dynamically ramp it up until we max that thing out, which I think we can't actually do it. That's how we want to do it, but I totally forgot. It's midnight almost. Jordan, these two, because we're doing the whole A-B bank split between the Rivian and these two, we can only pull a maximum of 20 amps until we blow the local circuit. So take a look down here on this board. You can see these two little white pins. Do you see those? There you go. Those two white pins will pop if you pull more than 20 amps per each bank of 120 volt outlets. And since this is kind of the way we're arranging this, we actually can't do more than 7 amps on the Tesla. So let me make sure the Tesla is set to go to 7 amps, and then we'll plug it in and we'll max out that bank, at least based off of plug connection. And now that should be, go take a look in the truck, that should max out that bank, which shouldn't max out the inverter, but should get close. Yeah, what's that doing for us?
2.3.
Okay, so that's all we're able to pull on that then.
Yep.
And that maxes you out. And then the Rivian, we're gonna pull up to, the problem is with all of these vehicles is it's hard to remember what's unlocked and locked. So, more keys there. This one, I'm gonna start it at, let's just say 14 amps. That should get us close, and then we'll ramp it till we max. This is going here, this is going here, and the Rivian's in. This is the truck that's gonna get the most amount of juice, of course, and it kind of needs it because it's at 19%. So then, Jordan, you stay in the F-150 and tell me until that hits 3.6 kilowatts.
All right. I think that's probably it. That's 3.6.
All right, well, there we go. That's 30 amps. That's what that plug's rated for.
Beautiful.
That's good. So show everyone the screen, just walk them through it.
Yeah, so the front circuit's at 2.24 of the available 2.4 kilowatts. And then on A, we have 2.34 of the 3.6, but that's because of the amp limitations. And bank B, we have maxed out because that's the 30 amp circuit. So they're all pretty glowing.
It's as max as we can get it.
Also, before we go, we had to mention right below Pro Power Onboard is Pro Power Reserve. And by default, I'm not actually sure what this was at default, but we had to turn it down to 10 miles, which I think is the minimum. Yep. So that's basically at what point the estimated range is remaining that it'll shut everything down. So that way you're not completely stranded. You can have it manual, or you can select it to be automatic based on your location. So let's say you leave home, go somewhere else, and then it will know, oh, you need this many miles to get back home. So we have it to the minimum, so it won't drain the truck completely to zero, but it'll get it pretty close.
So we started this torture test at 11:30 p.m. tonight. I'd say it's time to go to bed, and really curious to see what the numbers are. We got everything locked up. The only thing is the F-150 has to stay running, but we already just tested it. You can't get in and steal it without the key because it's not technically on. It's just sort of in its accessory power mode. And we got it blocked in with the smart car. So we're good, and it's our safe office parking lot. We're gonna let this run all night. We're gonna go get some sleep, and we'll see if anything explodes when we get here in the morning. And well, a good morning to you. We've gotten a full night's sleep. This experiment has been running for 9 hours, and surprisingly, the F-150 is still outputting the same exact power to all the cars than when we started. I thought something must overheat at some point. Anyway, what I want to do is talk a little bit about how much energy we pulled out of the F-150 Lightning and see how every car charged up, really. I'm going to give you percentages because that's what we go off of, but again, each car has a different size battery pack, so those percentages equal different amounts of kilowatt hours put into the cars. However, this is the best way we can do it in this short amount of time. It's fine. So the smart car, we started at, what did we start this thing at, Jordan? 38%. And now it's at 77%. Nice. So that's pretty good. And that, again, we had this one derated just to 8 amps. By the way, there's a couple limitations on Pro Power Onboard, which is, you can see we had to leave the front cracked, the front trunk cracked. And the reason we had to do that is if the front trunk closes all the way, it limits the ports to 175 watts on the inside. So you can charge like an e-bike, you can charge any sort of laptop or anything there, but you can't do anything more than 175 watts out of the front trunk while the vehicle's in motion. Why? Probably heat management would be my guess. I don't know anything other than that. So then we have the Hyundai Ionic 5. Let me grab the keys to that. The Ionic 5, we started with 69% state of charge, and this one we have sort of maxed out. Where did I put the keys? They're on the roof of the Smarty. This one we have maxed out at the full power that the 12 amps, 120 volts that the mobile connector could give. And let's take a look. We're at 80% state of charge, and it's still charging at 1.3 kilowatts. So this gained 11% overnight, which is nice, of course, that's good. The Etron has such a big battery pack. I would be shocked if it gained anything, especially plugged into a 110 outlet. What we decided to do, which I thought would be a little bit smarter, was we balanced the load between the Etron and the Tesla, both at 10 amps. So we didn't do the 13 and 7 like we set up last night. Right before we left, we did 10 amps here, 10 amps to the Tesla. Let's see what the Etron is at. Unfortunately, you gotta like get in, turn it on, wait for the stuff to boot up. Then you gotta go vehicle. You gotta wait for it to initialize. It's still initializing. Come on, Etron, let's go. There we go, charging and efficiency, charging. So many menus deep, 60%. So this gained 10% just on a wall outlet. That's pretty good, not bad at all, in not even 12 hours. Then the Tesla will tell us all of the good details because Tesla gets people want the nerdy stats. So I need to stop recording again to unlock this. Well, now we got the Tesla opened up, so we gotta wait for it to boot up. But Jordan, why don't you hop in there? And then if you click the battery icon on the screen, Nope, just the battery icon. There you go. It should say, no, they moved everything around in this new update. Yeah, it's right there. So we're still doing 10 out of 12 amps in that top left-hand corner, and we added 9 kilowatt hours. So a full 9 kilowatt hours went to the Tesla, and it's at what percent state of charge? 51, and we started with 38. So that's pretty good. And now for the big question. What's interesting, also another limitation of Pro Power Onboard, is if you were to use the 240 volt connection, right, and you max that out at 7.2 kilowatts, it means that these other plugs, you can't pull anything more from it. So while there's more plugs and available power here in terms of stuff you could plug in, its maximum is 7.2 kilowatts. And the thing is, you have to arrange your power bank by bank, because one bank does 3.6, the other bank does 3.6. So that's why we did this kind of weird equation thing. So we wanted to at least have one of the inverters going to the max, 3.6 kilowatts, to see if it would overheat. And that's what we did with the Rivian, and the truck's still providing full power. I'll give you all the stats as to how much energy the truck lost in a second, but let's take a look as to how much the Rivian gained. So the Rivian is pretty cool. It gives us this full charging curve, actually. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but it's been charging for just about 9 hours, 8 hours, 54 minutes. This was the last one we plugged in. And if I just hold something over here, wait, gotta go, boom. So it's still doing 4 kilowatts, and which, it's just rounding up from 3.6. And it's added 22 kilowatt hours, has gone into the battery pack. That's not necessarily what was delivered from this port. That probably delivered a bit more because there's losses in charging, of course. And there you go. I'm not recommending to use this as your daily charging source. It's not like this truck comes with any free electricity, but don't you think people would take advantage of that, Jordan? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna go charge up my truck for free at a fast charger and then dump it all into all the other cars. But this doesn't, I think it gets a couple hundred kilowatt hours for free or something like that. So good that they don't do that. I'm not a fan of free charging anyway. Let's hop in the truck and then see how this held up. I do want to mention something. We had obviously climate control off all night. Any ancillary loads were off on the vehicle, of course. However, when we arrived here, and it's not doing it right now, we heard the fans kicking on up front. And it must be getting those inverters warm enough to actually have an active cooling component to keep them cold. So it seems like you can just run this thing maxed out and not even worry about it. So let's hop in, let's get into the nerdy data. So here in the truck, we still have the screen going, and it is still pretty much doing exactly what we asked. We maxed out that bank B to the, all the way, still outputting full power. Bank A is about 70% maxed out, and then the front section is as close as we could get it. If I load up the numbers here, we started this test where the F-150 thought it had 127.65 kilowatt hours left in the battery pack. Right now it thinks there's 46.17, and it's down to 38% state of charge. So if we were to run this test for a full 12 hours, it might deplete the F-150 completely, which makes sense because we're outputting full power. But that is really interesting. So we used 81 kilowatt hours. Wow. I can't believe we pulled that much energy out of it. And it's warm out. What's the temperature? It's definitely not 55, I'll tell you that much.
It's like 70 right now.
Yeah, 70, and in the baking sun at the moment. So we pulled over 80 kilowatt hours out of this thing. That's about an extreme test as you can do, because an electric car is one of the only appliances that runs max load. And in theory, we probably should have derated the Rivian off of max, 20% off, but science. We didn't explode anything. The truck was fine. Take a look at this, still rocking everything. And I think the good news here, what I really wanted to find out was, if you have to charge an electric car in an emergency, should you ever worry about the truck breaking or overheating or having an issue? And the answer is no. The answer is it can charge 5 electric cars at once, pretty much maxing out the Pro Power system, and you'll have no issues whatsoever. So, impressive work to the F-150 Lightning. This was probably one of the more boring tests that we did, but it's a fun thought experiment, at least, as to what you can do. Once you have power available, you can do anything you want with it, and this is just sort of the showcase that have fun with your Lightnings. Let us know what you plug into your trucks if you have one on order, or what you would plug into one if you don't have one on order. And I think we should go do some more videos with this thing. What do you think, Jordan?
Let's do it.
All right. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.